Dr. Michael Brown is under immense pressure after recent allegations have surfaced to high levels. Now, these allegations are surrounding specifically two females that had inappropriate relations with Dr. Michael Brown. So, in today's video, we're going to see what one of these females has to say about the situation, as well as what Dr. Michael Brown has to say. And we are also going to see eyewitness accounts from people who were there at this time who saw Dr. Michael Brown and this female doing very questionable things. So, with that being said, here's what we do know. Dr. Michael Brown has been accused of having an inappropriate relationship with a young woman who saw him as a father figure, according to new allegations by the Roy's report that occurred nearly 23 years ago. Erin, who claims that Brown, whom she called Dad, would frequently cross physical boundaries. He'd hold her hand, kiss her on the lips, and slap her bottom. So we're seeing this girl come into play who is unmarried, who is being touched inappropriately by Dr. Michael Brown. But we also see that she did play a part in this relationship. And so now we can look and say these two did have a relationship, which we'll see soon enough. But did Dr. Michael Brown use his spiritual authority to kind of manipulate this girl? It is quite possible. And so we're about to see something else that occurred that included a married female. Erin said she would often leave short, encouraging notes in Brown's Bible, desk drawers, or coat pocket, and sometimes he'd write a note for her in return. So she opened the drawer of his nightstand to hide a note for him when his handwriting on a yellow legal pad caught her eye. But she said Brown's words described an inappropriate situation Brown had with a married woman associated with Brownsville School. The letter basically stated that they were having a talking relationship and how they would dream about having sexual relations with each other and what they wanted to do with each other. How she wanted to wrap her legs around him, how he played into it, Erin said. In response, Erin said she confronted Brown about the letter. She said Brown told her that his wife was aware of the letter and the matter between him and the other woman was over. So now we're seeing another female come into play who was married. And these letters written to each other were very inappropriate, very sexual. And so, with all of this unfolding, this is what Dr. Michael Brown had to say about the situation. Upon receiving the news, both Nancy and I were shocked and horrified by the mix of accusations, allegations, false statements, and mischaracterizations. I can categorically state that in my 53 years in the Lord and more than 50 years with Nancy, I have never committed adultery or been sexually intimate with another woman, nor do the charges allege that. Yet, I must ask in all humility and in the fear of the Lord if an article on the Roy's report is the best way to describe these allegations and accusations. Does this glorify the Lord, edify the body, bring healing and restoration, or advance the cause of truth? Nancy and I did have a relationship with the woman in question and considered her to be like a family member, but she was not a family member, and aspects of my interactions with her, although totally non sexual in every way, reflect a definite lack of judgment. So, guys, this this response by Dr. Michael Brown is disturbing. We see here him using this language that's not okay. He's basically saying, "Hey, why are you going to the Rose Report? Why are you going to the public about this? Does this really glorify the Lord? Does this really edify the body? Does this really bring healing and restoration?" Dr. Michael Brown, the answer is yes. This needs to be exposed. This darkness needs to be brought to light. And so going to the public with this is absolutely what needs to happen. We don't need to continue to brush sin under the rug. And that's exactly the type of language Dr. Michael Brown is using here. And that is not okay. And he's trying to seemingly justify and say, Well, I wasn't having sexual relationships. I wasn't committing adultery. Yes, Dr. Michael Brown, you were committing adultery. You may, which we'll find out hopefully soon, not have had actual sexual physical relations with these females, but verbally, emotionally, you did. You were writing inappropriate notes. You were fantasizing about these women, and you were doing things that do not glorify the Lord. You are doing things that a married man who calls themselves a Christian should absolutely not be doing. And now Dr. Michael Brown goes on and says, the fact is that my actions towards her were certainly foolish and irresponsible, but neither sexual nor amorous in any way. And my highest priority, as well as Nancy's, is to have the opportunity to meet together in a setting acceptable to her and bring healing where I can take full responsibility for the things which apparently hurt her so deeply, things which I thought were addressed 23 years ago. So he's not denying that he did inappropriate things with this female and the other one, but he just doesn't want this to get into the public eye. But it's good that it did because people need to know the truth. Now, to end this video, guys, there are about 5 accounts that have come out of people who visually saw Dr. Michael Brown and this girl, Erin, do very inappropriate things. Former fire staff Londa Parker says she saw a note that Erin wrote to Brown. It had his name on it, Parker said. It had hearts drawn all over it. I got this sick feeling. Greg Montella, who assisted Brown on ministry trips, walked in on Erin and Brown in his office. Montella said Erin was sitting on Brown's lap. I couldn't understand what I saw, he said. I spun around really fast and just walked right out. I thought, that's odd. That's gross. But this was in a time where people were talking so much about sonship and family and fatherhood of God. Kathleen, a former fire ministry, said she saw Erin snuggling with Brown and sitting on Brown's lap. She said she didn't see Brown's own daughters doing the same. Chris Bennett, Brown's former assistant, said he saw Brown holding Erin's hand in a van late at night on a ministry trip. Kenneth Collins, a former fire school director, said he saw Brown driving alone with Erin in a Walmart parking lot. Guys, we need to be in prayer that the truth would be brought out in the situation, that nothing would be hidden, that all things would be exposed, because this is not okay. Dr. Michael Brown needs to take responsibility for the adultery that he committed, because this is not something that needs to be hidden. This needs to be brought to the light, and we need to expose these types of things, because Dr. Michael Brown, for the most part, across the board, is highly respected. But this is uncalled for. This is not okay, and this needs to be exposed.